The girl suddenly realized that the old lady in front of her wasn't human at all. Her hair was falling out strand by strand, and her body was making terrifying bone-cracking sounds. The girl was so scared that she didn't even dare to breathe, but her umbrella kept rising higher and higher, as if something was pushing it. When she turned her head, she was stunned. The old lady was growing taller at an unnatural rate. The eerie sight left the girl frozen in shock. The old woman's resentful eyes sent chills straight into her bones. The girl forced herself to stay calm and came up with an excuse to leave. She tried to pretend that she hadn't seen anything, but her breathing became rapid and her footsteps quickened. Behind her, the sound of heavy footsteps followed, getting closer and closer. The monster was limping rapidly toward her. Unable to keep her composure any longer, the girl screamed and ran for her life. Her cry caught the attention of the owner of a nearby lighting store. Alarmed, he rushed outside. Seeing him, the girl quickly hid behind him. The monster approached steadily, but the store owner didn't panic. Calmly, he told the girl to go home. Clearly, he had his own way of dealing with this. Without haste, the store owner took off his sunglasses. The monster stopped in its tracks the moment it saw him. They stared at each other for 3 seconds before the creature finally backed off. It turned around and walked away, its body gradually returning to normal. No one really knew who the store owner was. He only opened his shop at midnight, and whenever someone came to buy a light bulb, he would coldly tell them not to touch the bulbs. The timid ones would leave, grumbling. Occasionally, a bold customer would try to forcefully take one down. At that moment, the owner would silently remove his sunglasses. That look alone was enough to make them stop and leave. But there was one exception, the girl who came every night to buy a bulb. To her, the owner always greeted with a warm smile and even offered candy. Why? Because those customers weren't really living people. He once warned her gently. After she left with the bulb, the previously confident shop owner suddenly turned into an old, weathered man. Because he wasn't a normal person either, he was a spiritual soul keeper, one who bridged the world of the living and the dead. Each bulb in his shop represented someone's soul. On her way home, the girl, Jianju, ran into a woman dragging a suitcase in the hallway. She politely greeted her, unaware that blood was dripping from the suitcase. The woman's entire aura was chilling. Every night, she sat at the bus stop, tapping the bench with her fingers as if waiting for someone. After running into her several nights in a row, Xuanming began to feel uneasy. One day, watching her sit alone in the rain, he couldn't bear it any longer. Out of sympathy, he gave her his umbrella and told her to go home. But the woman, Ji Yang, murmured to herself, "There's no time left," and insisted on following Xuanming home. Before he could react, Ji Yang stood up and began dragging her suitcase with her. Stunned, Xuanming tried to stop her, but she wouldn't listen. Left with no choice, he let her come inside. However, once home, Ji Yang refused to let him turn on the lights. Though he didn't understand her strange behavior, he still handed her a towel to dry off. But as she looked directly at him with a cold stare, Xuanming began to feel a deep fear. Things became even more disturbing when he noticed her fingernails were growing out of the flesh of her fingertips. Frightened, he didn't dare to say a word. He forced himself to stay calm and walked into the bathroom, trying to think of a way to get her out of his home. But the moment he stepped back into the room, her suitcase suddenly fell to the ground. Ji Yang calmly crouched down and began opening it. Inside were all kinds of sharp knives, neatly arranged. Ji Yang carefully picked out the one that fit her hand best. After picking up the scissors, he pulled his suitcase and walked out the door, just in time to run into Jianju, who was returning home. But the next day, Jianju encountered Xuanming in the elevator. Seeing Xuanming's abdomen covered in blood, Jianju was so frightened that he didn't dare to even breathe. The moment the elevator opened, he sprinted toward his home as fast as he could, but Xuanming kept following closely behind. With trembling hands, Jianju tried to input the password to unlock his door. Fortunately, Xuanming stopped just short of reaching him. It turned out Xuanming lived right next door. Seems like he and the woman from last night were actually a couple. Only then did Xianju breathe a sigh of relief. But just as he was about to go inside, Xuanming suddenly called out to him, "Student, do you live here?" "Yes." "Have you seen me before?" "No." From that moment, Xianju was completely confused. It seemed like he couldn't remember anything. But the next second, things got even weirder. Alarmed by the strange situation, Xianju quickly rushed into his apartment and pressed his ear against the door to listen. But eavesdropping wasn't as exciting as peeking, so out of curiosity, she opened the door, and what she saw was enough to fry her brain. She witnessed Jiang calmly stuff Xuanming into a suitcase, just like that. Terrified, Xianju was about to scream on the spot, but thankfully her mom pulled her back into the apartment just in time. Only when the noises outside stopped did the two of them gather their thoughts. "I saw it, Mom. Are you even listening? I just heard you yelling outside. Didn't you hear it?" But her mom didn't say a word. She just showed her a broken light bulb as if asking why she hadn't bought a new one tonight. Xianju, now more frustrated, lashed out, saying that she had been experiencing too many strange things lately. And not only did her mom not care, but she also kept breaking the bulbs every day and made her go buy new ones. What was up with that? What Xianju didn't know was that she wasn't the only one going through weird stuff. Even Shan Hai, another woman, had been dealing with strange issues. The bulbs in her Shanghai apartment kept going out for no reason. Even when she replaced them with new ones, they didn't last long. She just assumed it was due to old wiring. since she had rented the apartment at a very low price. Even though one of the rooms hadn't been renovated and couldn't be opened, the low rent made her overlook everything and she moved in anyway. But the light bulbs weren't the only issue. Every night, she heard a boy singing in the alley, which gave her constant headaches. And just as she was complaining again, the bulb went out once more. That's when Shanhai noticed a light shining from the supposedly locked room. Though it was creepy, she couldn't resist the urge to check it out. Strangely, the lock that never opened before turned with just a gentle twist. But the room was completely empty, except for one brightly lit bulb. Without thinking too much, she turned off the light. Just then, the boy singing outside happened to walk by. Hearing the singing, Shanhai opened the window and angrily asked the boy why he kept disturbing people every night. To her surprise, Jiang, the boy, got so scared he ran off immediately because he saw a creepy monster clinging to Shanhai's back. Later, after taking a shower, Shanhai finally noticed something was off. Long hair, that didn't belong to her, appeared mysteriously in the drainage pipe. When she picked up a flashlight to investigate, the bulb in that strange room lit up again. Nervously, she approached the room, but just then the door behind her slowly creaked open on its own. She turned to the mirror and saw something she would never forget for the rest of her life. The strange creature that Ju had encountered earlier, can you believe it? It suddenly appeared right inside his house. Only then did he realize, all this time, he had actually been living under the same roof as a monster. Turns out, the reason why the lights in his house were always broken was because the monster needed to live in darkness. Ju stood there, frozen in fear, barely able to breathe. Meanwhile, in the nearby alley, Ziqiang bumped into Jiang, who was soaking wet and dragging a suitcase behind him. Worried, Ziqiang quickly ran over, held an umbrella over his head, and apologized for scaring him earlier. Jiang asked, "Where were you going in the middle of the night?" Ziqiang replied, "I was trying to find the lighting store. If I can just get there, maybe I can finally go home." Turns out, Ziqiang had been wandering this alley for a long time, but no matter how far or which direction he walked, he just couldn't find the way out. It was like he'd entered some kind of ghost loop. To keep himself brave, he kept singing songs while walking. When Jiang mentioned he was also headed to the lighting store, Ziqiang immediately decided to follow along. As they walked together, they passed by Ju's house. Ziqiang couldn't hold it in and told Jiang what he saw inside. But surprisingly, instead of getting scared, Jiang became curious. He actually wanted to know whether Ju and the monster were somehow connected. Not wanting to stir up trouble, Ziqiang tried to stop him, but just then, thud, he collapsed to the ground. Following Jiang's gaze, Ziqiang looked down at his legs, and that's when he saw it. Both of his legs were already broken and twisted beyond recognition. He had no idea how or when it happened. Terrified, he began to crawl away in panic. But he wasn't the only one trying to escape. Inside the house, Ju was also desperately trying to flee. He frantically entered the code on the lock, but no matter what he tried, the door wouldn't open. In a frenzy, he picked up a hammer nearby and began smashing at the lock like a madman. But it didn't even budge. With no other option, he grabbed a glass ball and smashed it. Meanwhile, Ziqiang, whose legs were bent and barely functional, kept dragging himself in circles through the alley. But no matter how many turns he took, he always ended up back in front of the lit room in Ju's house. After countless failed attempts, he couldn't take it anymore and collapsed on the ground. Back inside the house, Ju was screaming at the top of his lungs for help, but no one came. At that moment, both men felt a shared, unbearable despair. Just then, the door of the lighting store creaked open. Jiang entered, dragging his suitcase behind him. The shopkeeper asked, "What do you need?" Jiang didn't answer. He just walked around the shop, searching for something. Eventually, his eyes stopped on a flickering light bulb. Then, he glanced down at his own suitcase. "I need something," he said softly. "Can you tell me what it is that you need?" The shopkeeper asked again. But strangely, Jiang's suitcase was still dripping blood. Suddenly, a detective named Officer Han pushed open the store door. He was on the trail of a fugitive, but somehow that fugitive had vanished in the blink of an eye. Following the blood trail, Officer Han had found the only building with its lights still on, the lighting store. Hearing that Officer Han was looking for a criminal, Jiang quietly clenched his fists. While Han and the shopkeeper were chatting, Jiang tried to sneak out of the store with his suitcase, but Officer Han noticed him. He saw the blood on the ground and quickly stopped Jiang to question him. Thinking quickly, Jiang nervously explained, "It's that time of the month." Han was caught off guard, but ended up taking off his own jacket and placing it over Jiang to shield him from the rain. After Jiang left, the shopkeeper asked Officer Han who he was chasing. Officer Han replied, "I was following the motorcycle trail of the fugitive." A few days earlier, a girl had locked herself inside her home to escape harassment from a creepy ex. The guy kept banging on her door like a lunatic. Furious, the girl lost her cool and screamed out a string of insults so harsh that she probably cursed 18 generations of his ancestors. Maybe she went too far, because after that, silence. Thinking he'd finally left, she cautiously opened the door to take a peek. Sure enough, the hallway was empty, no one in sight. She finally began to let her guard down. Just then, the boy turned around to look. But before the girl could close the door, he quickly rushed toward him, entered his house, and threw him out of the window. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.